welcome back to Ship of the Week. Many apologies for the absence of a ship last week. Things got a little crazy for a bit there. Anyway, this week's ship is the World War II United States Navy escort carrier, USS Charger. It is November 1939. Several months earlier, war in Europe began with the German invasion of Poland, and the United States Maritime Commission, the federal agency tasked with coordinating the U.S. Merchant Marine's development, gave permission to the Moore-McCormick Company to order a handful of combination passenger cargo ships of the C-3 hull type for service to South America. The intended name for the service for one of these ships was to have been SS Rio de la Plata. Now, things were steadily getting way worse in Europe while the ship was under construction in Pennsylvania by Sun Shipbuilding. And by the time Rio de la Plata was launched in the spring of 1941, Denmark, Norway, Luxembourg, France, Belgium, and the Netherlands had joined Poland and were swallowed, whole or in part, by advancing German forces. And the Battle of Britain was drawing to a close in the skies over the British Isles. In May of that year, the same regulatory agency that granted the original permits to build the combo liner took over her completion and took the ship in a radical new direction. Anticipating the eventual need to be able to move a large number of aircraft to various theaters of operation and train pilots, maintenance crews, and sailors how to operate a flight deck, but not wishing to build dozens of the fast, combat-dedicated fleet carriers, an effort which would be incalculably expensive, the United States set about converting ships of other types into a smaller, slower class of escort carriers, a type already seen in the navies of Britain and her imperial holdings and Imperial Japan. Any of the ship's upper works that were already installed were cut down to make way for a flight deck, and her vast cargo capacity was repurposed as hangar space. 492 feet long, with a displacement of about 15,100 tons, she commissioned as USS Charger in March of 1942, with the United States already embroiled in the war. Her aforementioned escort carrier's size and capability, with a top speed of 17 knots and an aircraft capacity of about 30 or so planes, meant that she was primarily engaged in training operations in home waters, in and around the Chesapeake Bay. The vital importance carrier operations played in the Pacific War required a lot of pilots, and the nuance of carrier takeoff and landing procedures as they contrasted to terrestrial airfields made Charger and ships like her an invaluable resource. Despite her auxiliary role, however, Charger was just as much a member of the Atlantic Fleet as her larger and faster colleagues, and for her crew, she was her own little world. The men would, during their extended time away from home, require various conveniences, and depicted here is the ship's store, not unlike that which could be found across the vast fleets the combatant nations around the world had churned out for the conflagration. More than just candy and smokes, however, the shop was also a pharmacy. The sailors were far from their usual physicians and drugstores. While it seems Charger never needed to fire her guns in anger, trainees stationed aboard the ship would certainly need to know how to use them, and, of course, it was never entirely certain that the skies over the Chesapeake would not suddenly teem with Luftwaffe bombers. The end of the war made Charger redundant almost overnight, and she left the fleet in 1946. This was not, however, the end of the ship's story. The Italian Maritime Transport Company, or SITMAR Line, was in need of medium-sized passenger ships for the post-war travel and immigration boom, and acquired the mothballed carrier for conversion into their ocean liner, Fairsea, which entered passenger service in 1949, carrying those looking for a new life in Australia, south. She would carry on servicing Britain to Australia for 20 years, until the aging ship was heavily damaged by a mechanical fire in early 1969, and her operators deemed it far too expensive to attempt repairs. She was withdrawn and auctioned for scrap that year.